And they asked me, they said, you got 3 days coming off of work. Where are you going to go? And I said, I'm going home. And they said, going home? They said, do you see your mom and dad? And I said, no, just my dad and Jesus. And they go, what? And I said, yeah, I'm going to be on a 3-day fast, and I'm just going to pray that I could see some of the things of heaven. And I wanted to do a study on the book of Revelation, and so I was going to do that in 3 days' time, and I was just going to have a time with him. And so it was about 6 o'clock, 6 in the morning, after the first day. I came in at 4 o'clock that night, and I was praying, and I was broken before the Lord, and I had my worship cassette tapes, because it was really early. This was 1980. And had my cassette tapes, and I wanted to just go in with the Lord, and the worship was on, and I don't know who I was listening to. It was probably Jimmy Swaggart, I don't know, because I used to listen to a lot of his tapes at that time. But went into this, and I was up and down most of the night. Finally, around 5 o'clock, I was wide awake, and all of a sudden I was taken somewhere between 5 and 6 that next morning, and I was taken. And all of a sudden, it was like I was taken to a different place, and I knew something was happening. My body felt funny. All of a sudden, I was standing in a different place. I closed my eyes, and I was standing in a different place. And when I was standing in this different place, one of the things that first came to me was, and I tried to remember it as best I can, is there was an angel. It wasn't the Lord, but it was an angel that came and stood with me. And I figured that he must have been like a heavens tour guide or something. And I'd been on a lot of guided tours, and he didn't speak a lot, but he could say things to me, and I could understand what he was thinking, or understand what he was saying without speech. That, first of all, got to me. The idea that I knew exactly what he was saying. And I would ask a question, and sometimes I would get an answer, and sometimes he would just smile at me. And I knew when he smiled at me, I wasn't going to get an answer, because it wasn't for me to know some of those things. Because I was very inquisitive at that time. So the first thing that I saw, and I'd always pictured when I'd see the throne of God, and I'd see Jesus, over here at the right hand, and I got there and I looked at the throne in the distance, and the throne was here. Now that doesn't mean a lot to you. Sometimes I was diagnosed when I was young as borderline dyslexic. I might be borderline dyslexic, but I was seeing that throne on that side in my mind all my life until I got there and I saw the throne right there. The throne and the throne on the right hand of the Father. And I thought, oh, I get it now. Duh. It was one of those duh moments where all my life I had seen it differently until I was actually standing there. It's like if you go to the Eiffel Tower and you got an impression in your mind with the Eiffel Tower. Has anybody ever done that? You've got an impression from pictures or in your mind's eye, and you get to the place and you go, oh, I didn't think it was going to be like that. That's different than what I thought. Well, it was different than what I thought. And then one of the first things we did was when we were entered into this, I had come through a gate, and when I walked on this street, when I walked, my feet kind of gave, like I was walking on cork or rubber, hard rubber. And I couldn't figure out what this was. And I read in the Bible that the streets were gold. Now, I know gold as this color here. But I was walking, and it was like crystal. Like crystal. It was like soft crystal that I was walking on, and I thought, wow, this is really, really freaky. What is this? And I said to him, I thought the streets were gold. And that's when he smiled at me and didn't say anything else. I said, okay. And I didn't say anything more. I didn't find out till 10 years later. 10 years later, I'm sitting on a Saturday morning watching a National Geographic special on melting gold. That's what it said, in those big block letters, melting gold. And I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. So I sat there, and they said that gold, in its purest form, is crystal clear. It's the softest metal known to man. And when it adapts a different color, it means it's melded with a different metal on the earth. And then they said it can never be in its purest form here on earth, simply because it's too soft. Nothing can hold it together. And no kidding, I'm sitting on the couch going, if nothing can hold it together, then what was holding it together? And then it just came to me. It's the Word of God that holds the streets of gold together. And it was crystal clear, just like they said. Now, I didn't know it until 10 years later. I walked on it. I saw it as crystal clear, but I didn't know why it was crystal clear until 10 years later. It's one of those situations where I saw it first and understood it later. There's sometimes you can understand something and then go into it. But when you actually encounter something and then understand it later, you know you had to have been there. You had to have been there. And as I walked on it, and they said it's the softest metal known to man. And it was soft when I walked on it. Soft. It gave. It gave to the weight of my body, but it didn't split apart. And that's one of the first things that I saw. Second thing I saw was the throne. And the throne was pretty impressive. The throne, if I had to even, I can't even draw it. But the throne was here. And Caleb, come here, will you? Draw a rainbow. Because there's a rainbow on the throne. So draw a rainbow over the throne, will you? Here's the top of the throne. Draw the rainbow. Right? That's what I saw. Isn't that what you see? No! It's a rainbow that starts down here and goes all the way up this way and circles the throne. If you look at the verbiage, after you see it, it's a circle. It goes around, about the throne, not over top of the throne. And it circles the throne. Did you know the cool thing about rainbows is they're round? You can't see them from the earth. You can see them from the air, though. If you've ever been in an airplane and seen a rainbow. They are round. They are circular. That is the continuing promise of God. That is the unending promise of God. The everlasting promise of God. It's a round rainbow. And that rainbow went from here all the way up as far as I could see. So yes, I saw the throne through color. I saw the throne through color. Colors that I've never seen before. And yes, there was red. And yes, there was green. And yes, there was purple. But there was colors that I didn't know inside of that rainbow. And it went around the throne. And I thought, why is the rainbow around the throne? Well, part of that is because you've got the light of God. And you've got the crystal sea right here. And you've got what proceeding from the throne of God? What comes out of the throne of God? Lightnings and thunder. Lightning and thunder. There is a mist that comes up off the crystal sea that literally surrounds the light of the Father and the Lamb. And it's the most spectacular thing. And I think that was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. That again, I looked at it as Caleb saw it. There was a rainbow over the throne. But that rainbow sits around the throne. As far up as my eye could see. Colors so abundant and so vibrant. And it wasn't like a rainbow like we saw that kind of faded. It was absolutely vivid. Just vivid. Around the throne. Surrounded the throne. And not only did I see it, but then I went back to the Word and I realized that John saw it. There was a rainbow set about the throne. Around the throne. It wasn't over top of the throne. And I was totally mesmerized by that. I saw the streets of gold, and with this angel accompanying me, we went to 3 places. I was taken to 3 places, and one was the throne room. And it was unmistakable. Those streets of gold, first of all, absolutely boggled my mind that I walked on something that I couldn't understand. And isn't that the way it is sometimes with God? We walk on something we don't understand. We walk by faith, and then He tells us later why. And that's what I walked on. I believe it was the faith of God, and didn't question it after I asked and I didn't get an answer. I just thought, okay. Then, so that was the first place I went to. The second place we went to when we walked was the banquet hall. The banquet hall was the second thing I saw. And I'm getting all kinds of messy up here, but the banquet hall was in a different part of this, what I believe to be third heaven. I believe it was the third heaven. I can't say for sure, but the banquet hall had, when you walked up to it, it had these mass arches. And it had an arch, an arch, an arch. Now Caleb photoshopped this down about 1 million. And Photoshop it this way, about 1 million. I could not see the end of where the building ended on this side. I could not see where the building ended up on this side. All I know is there were arches. And there was a top to it. And I thought, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And it was just absolutely gorgeous. It looked like stone. It looked like some kind of stone and jeweled arches. And I walked here. We came right to the very entrance here. And inside, I saw table after table after table. And you know how I told you to Photoshop things this way and this way? Well, Photoshop the tables that way, because I couldn't see the end of where those tables stopped. I couldn't see. I saw chairs that what looked to be black onyx with gold nameplates on the back of each one of these chairs. And I thought to myself, and on the tables, I've seen beautiful settings of silverware and tables here, and I've had a chance to eat with politicians and royalty, but there I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen the tablecloths as white and shimmering. Shimmering is the only way I can describe it. And the bowls were crystal clear with all kinds of fruit in the bowls, and I didn't know. That confused me because I thought, well, are those gold or are those crystal bowls? I don't know. To this day, I don't know what those were. All I know, there's bowls on the table, and I know there was names on the chairs. And I was going to go in, step in to find my nameplate, to find my chair. And just as I was stepping in, come here, Caleb. I mean, I'll play the part of the angels, you play the part of me, like you're going to step in. It goes like this. Well, just like that. And I knew by just his arm here that I was good to go no further. And we just sat and looked. And he just wanted me to look. Now, that was interesting. And that had a meaning to it right away. Not like the streets that I didn't understand until 10 years later. This had a meaning right away. When I was in college, and I graduated from college in 1980, before the second semester started. And before I graduated, I took a course there called Executive Profile Development at the University of Wisconsin. It was a class. There was a 2-credit class in the general category, and it was a class for mainly business people or marketing people that wanted to go off and be effective in the world. And so they wanted to be able to have us Midwestern hayseeds be able to compete for jobs with the Eastern boys and the California boys. And to do that, it was like a great big etiquette course. And so they taught us how to drink wine and eat cheese and wear a tie, and how to banquet. We had to set a banquet. Our final exam is we had to create a banquet. That we were banqueting. That's how my parents spent their money helping me get through college, as I was doing executive profile development. And so we had a teacher. She was an old Jewish lady, Jewish, Romania, somewhere around there. And she said, now this is what you're going to do. And then we just had a blast in that class. And I can remember one little thing that stuck out. She said this. She said, there's a moment right before the guests arrive where there's no cook, no busboy, no family member. Nobody is allowed into that room. I don't know, have you ever heard of this, Stella? But it's called breathing. The banquet room had to breathe. And it's the moments right before the guests arrive where everything's perfect and everything's ready. And there's no disruption in the atmosphere in there. And nobody can go in. And the angel wouldn't let me in. The angel wouldn't let me in. And I knew at that point that we were at the moment right before the guests were going to arrive. That's how close we are. That's how close we are. And then I couldn't go in. I wanted to go in and check for my name. He had his hand here, and all of a sudden I realized as he was preventing me that banquet hall, when you're sitting here listening to my words, that banquet hall is breathing right now. It's breathing right now. And that one got me while I was there. And the third place that we went to was a place, and it looked like it was out in the middle of nowhere. We walked, and it wasn't just an urban setting. I mean, I saw the Crystal Sea and the mansions that were built right up on the Crystal Sea. I mean, mansions built up on this sea that never ended this way. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I cannot describe that other than the fact that I was in a Home Depot one time. And I was stuck behind about 48 people. And I got to the magazine thing, finally I opened up, and it was like a Condé Nast or something. And I opened it up, and there was a Mediterranean shot of this huge Crystal Sea and this mansion with a big patio on top overlooking the sea with the columns and the pillars, and I started to cry. Because immediately I remembered that's what heaven was like. That's what the mansion that I was standing in looked like, was that. And it was the most beautiful, breathtaking thing I've ever seen. And so they took us away. He took me away from the sea where we couldn't see the sea anymore. I mean, you couldn't even see it from a distance. So I knew this must have been a massive place because that sea was huge when I saw it. And then the next moment we were walking and we came upon hills. Massive hills all over, green hills. And as we came up, I saw from a distance there was something on the hill. It looked like the hills were moving. The hills were alive. I didn't break into the sound of music or anything, but that's what it was. It was like the hills were alive. And as I got closer, I realized there were animals on those hills. There were white horses on those hills. As far as my eye could see, white horses. White horses. He took me right to the place where the armies of God were going to mount up. See, because I believe that we're part of that army of God that's going to meet them in the air, and I'll explain that at a different time. And I could explain it to you here, but I'm running out of time. But all I can say is this: is that we stood there, and it was like one of those old hitching posts that was there. It was like stuck in the ground, and it was here, and I know